Hey everyone, Matt here. I did a great interview this week with a guest, and normally we don't have guests on this channel, but this week I was very happy to have Trevor from the In Kix We Trust podcast on the pod this week. We talked about sneakers, we talked about life in Toronto as a sneakerhead. Trevor's a great guy, he's a great host with a great podcast, and I hope that you can support him the way that you support me. Enjoy. So normally we don't have many guests on this pod. I've been doing this now for 3 years, all by myself. We've had a couple of guests. And one of the things I wanted to do in 2025 that kind of came to a halt when life got busy was highlight creators out there in the sneaker space. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but just in the creative space in general. So this guy that I have on here, we've been talking for a while about having this, and life has gotten in the way a couple of times. But with me today to steal their line, we have 1/5 of the In Kix We Trust podcast, and that is Trev, who is the host, I would say, moderator. Trev, welcome to Fire Footwear.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Did I get it right?
You did. Yes, you did. You did. What were the what's the big radio saying? First time caller, long time listener.
Yeah, first time, long time. I feel like I did that to Mosh recently. I don't know if you saw that, but he got back to me because I made a reel. I have a thing where I don't like to tag people in reels. I feel very cringy, and I don't know if that's a product of my age or just not really liking social media in general, but he did message me back, which I thought was actually kind of neat. And I said it's kind of a first time, long time situation because I know he would get that being a New York guy. And so I thought that was really fun. But Trev, you're here because you, like I alluded to earlier, are 1/5 of In Kix We Trust. And those people, those of you who are listening today, you have definitely heard of them because I've mentioned you guys before on the pod. And there's 5 of you, so it's a crowded space. But you and I have connected via In Kix We Trust. I think you run their social media handles and all that stuff. And I've been listening to you guys for a while. And I wanted to have you on because I noticed that the dynamic within your pod, for the most part, is you are very much a moderator. You kind of get things to where they need to go. And I don't, at least, and this is not a shot at your pod mates, but I don't feel like I get to know you all that well through the podcast because you're queuing people up. You're doing the hard work that many people don't understand is actually difficult to do. So I want to find out about you. But the first thing that I want to talk about with you is In Kix We Trust. How did that come about? And we're going to get into kind of your life journey here, but let's set the stage here for how did In Kix We Trust even come about? Because you're on nearly 250 episodes, so I'm sure there is an origin story somewhere.
Do you want the group story or the group story is probably the better one? So we'll start with
tell
that.
whatever story you would like, actually, because it is your platform.
We'll go with the group one because that's probably the better one. The podcasting was just something we decided to do. So we'll go with the group one. So many years ago when I worked at Foot Locker, my manager at the time, when we did pre-orders, had a BBM group chat. And he just put all the guys that were interested in sneakers and would come and get raffles every week, or, well, at that time it wasn't every week, but once a month or whatever it was. And he could showcase the newest stuff that was coming in, send pictures in the group chat, and then it just kind of became a place where we all became friends and we would all talk and that kind of thing. So that's how I met Rich. Rich was a customer of mine when I worked at Foot Locker. He was coming in every month to pick up the newest Jordans. But through that, we would talk sneakers in this group chat. So that's kind of how we all met. Everyone kind of has a different origin point of coming in. Juan Macaulay worked at Foot Locker as well, so we added him to the group chat. Juan was somebody's cousin. No word of a lie. One of the guys that was in there it's just Juan was his cousin, so we added him into the group chat, and that's how we met Juan. Kev was somebody else. Kev worked with one of the guys that was in there. I think the guy who brought Juan in worked with Kev. That's how he got in there. And then Rich, again, he was part of the original group of people who were buying sneakers and were in this group chat to start off with. So time moves on. Everyone at that store kind of moved on. We've moved away from the point of doing raffles, but we loved that group chat because it was just like a place that we would talk sneakers all the time, right? And this would have been 2011, maybe, somewhere around there, 2011, 2012, where there really wasn't a place for that at that point. Instagram was still pretty new at that point, so it wasn't necessarily like a sneaker community there. So it was a nice place for all of us that were local to just chat about sneakers, and then we'd meet up and we'd grab dinner and stuff like that. Wasn't really sneaker shows up here at the time, which through that group we ended up throwing some sneaker conventions in Toronto in 2015, and I believe it was 2016, which were really the first of any kind. Or sorry, not the first. There was a group that had done it years before, but at that point, they were the first that had been done in many years in the city.
You mentioned Toronto, and that is something when I was on In Kix back last year, I talked about how I feel like you guys were carving out a space because of the fact of where you come from. I feel like when I look at the landscape of content or whatever you want to call it when it comes to sneakers, many of the narratives generally tend to be US focused, but this is a global phenomenon. People all over the world are into this. And Canada being what it is, right, there is a very strong presence. I mean, I see it in my analytics. There are many people in Canada who love sneakers the way that we both do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess my question to you is, do you feel like being from Canada and there not being really any of these groups here, do you think that made it easier for you all to kind of step out into that spotlight and put yourself out there? Because to have sneaker shows and conventions and so forth, I mean, those things are a big deal. And Canada's not exactly a small country.
No, absolutely not. It's small in comparison to the U.S., but
Sure,
a large population nonetheless. And I think specifically you have to kind of point it back to basketball, like, the Raptors being here. Like, if you listen to our pod, you've probably heard me mention this a few times, but there was a time where basketball was like a laughing stock of a sport, and specifically our team at one point. I remember growing up and kids being like, oh, you like, why would you want to cheer for the Raptors? Like, that's such a crap. The joke was they were called the Crafters, was the nickname they were giving them.
I've never heard that.
Oh, I heard it many, many times.
Wow.
But like, kind of in most sneaker culture, for the most part, originates from basketball, right? So, a lot of the guys that, or at least in our, like, that, you hear on our podcast, Rich grew up in the States, so, he had access to all that stuff growing up, right? Kev has always been huge into basketball, right? So, he remembers all those basketball shoes from the 90s, right? And as you kind of have that, sneaker culture evolves. And I, like, even from my perspective, like, kind of starting in 2010, it was always felt like we were an underappreciated market. Like, there just wasn't a lot of, focus on what was going on up here. But then it kind of shifted, I would say, when we had the All-Star game here and we opened up a Jordan store. That was when I really started to feel like we weren't an underappreciated market anymore. We were recognized as a global market for sneakers.
I guess a more general question, but you, obviously, being born and raised in Canada, do you feel like Canada globally just generally is underappreciated?
I think so. I think it's a great country. Like, there's so much.
Well, of course you do, but of course you do. But I think you understand me. And
Yeah,
again, this is not to
100%.
get down like a rabbit hole because we can get really volatile here. But this year in 2025, there has been a lot of nonsense coming from the United States related to Canada
Yeah.
and its place in the global market. But
Yeah.
and I only ask that because sneakers is such a small market in comparison to the world. But when I hear you say that, I wonder if older Canadians kind of feel like this is something that they have felt for their entire lives, where Canada has been seen as hockey, cold, right?
Yep.
Being
We live
very
in
nice.
igloos. Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Well, not even I'm not no, but like being very nice, but
Yes.
but like and I wonder to myself if having the success that you guys have had, and I would say success. I mean, maybe you would disagree with that, but the longevity, the amount of episodes, the popularity that you have, especially with the people in your country, that's huge.
Mhm.
And there has to be some level of satisfaction that comes from you feeling like, I've grown up a Canadian my whole life. Our country's been underappreciated. I love it here. And now you're having a moment in, yes, a small part of a global market, but it's something nonetheless. And then you get that Air Max 95, I think it was last year, the Toronto,
Yep.
right? And you've had some Canadian forward releases.
Yep.
That has to make you feel pretty good.
We've actually had 3 Canadian releases in the last calendar month.
In the last calendar month. Okay.
Sorry, not in the last calendar month. In the last calendar year. Sorry.
I remember two of them. What was the third?
So Air Max 95 Toronto, the Makeway P6000s.
Yep.
Makeway is for those who don't know, Makeway is a female-owned and operated sneaker store here in Toronto. So they have their own Nike collaboration on the P. I think is it the P6000?
It was the P6000.
Okay.
Yep.
They refer to it as the Party 6000 because they throw some pretty
Yep.
big parties here. So just I couldn't remember if they changed the number or not. And the Better Gift Shop Air Max DN8s released recently.
See, I missed that one because I'm not as tapped in, but I also probably missed that it was Canadian too. So, I mean, yeah, 3 in a year. And if you think about it, Trev, we are inundated with releases. Would you agree?
100%. Absolutely.
And we're going to dive into that for sure. But to have 3 out of Canada when what you're talking about is 10 years ago. It's not that long ago.
Yep.
And to have 3 in a market that is so oversaturated, I mean, to me, that feels like a win. It feels like a glow up for the Canadian market. And I feel like Canadian sneaker culture has to be just celebrating that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we are a marketplace for sneakers globally, right? Like, if you go back years, you'd have city packs of Jordans, or you'd have, different Air Max releases that would only be exclusively in Europe or in the States or maybe Japan or Asia somewhere, right? We're getting those now. Like, in the last 12 months, calendar year, we've had 3 releases from for Toronto or from Toronto shops.
Where do you stand? I did a reel on I think it was the Korea 2.0 Jordan 3, and I talked about culturally, is it weird if you go after something and wear something that maybe doesn't represent your culture? And do you have any sense of that with like Canadian exclusive releases? Because I remember the Air Max 95 Toronto I thought was really great, but I've never actually been to Canada. So to me, it would feel weird to take that opportunity away from somebody who could really identify with that. I mean, is that something that you care about, or is it kind of like, as long as I get my pair, I don't really care?
Yeah, it was readily available here for us in the city. I think it dropped first on our sneakers app, and then basically all the boutiques had a ton of pairs in the city. So I actually on release day walked out with 4 or 5 pairs. Not all for me, but
Yeah.
in the group chat, hey, who needs pairs? I got my pair. I moved to the back of the line. I got another pair. Moved to the back of the line again. Got another pair. And just kept doing that for people. So I personally, it's interesting because I kind of agree with your thoughts. I like the Soul 2.0 Jordan 3s, but I also was in that boat where I was like, I don't really need that. I don't have any ties to Korean culture or anything like that. So for me, it's it's a nice shoe, but I'd leave it. But I think it's cool to see people outside of Toronto rocking shoes that represent Toronto. I think that's really cool.
As long as they understand what it's about too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's part of it.
Yeah.
Where there's so many sneakers that come out now that have so many stories.
Yep.
And I've been lamenting lately. I've been kind of in a get off my lawn sort of old man era right now with sneakers, because I feel like, God, there's just so many that are coming out.
Yep.
And there's great stories attached to them, and nobody cares. Nobody cares about the story, I feel like.
Yep.
And you're nodding and saying yes.
Yep.
So clearly I'm not, because you're younger than I am, so you're an old man too now. But you know what I mean? I just feel like you should understand why the Toronto Air Max 95 is meaningful.
Yep.
Why it's meaningful to the country, why it's meaningful to the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just because it's Canadian. I mean, there is a level to that, but it's it represents a group of people that have been underappreciated and really underheard from.
Yep.
And that's where I think you guys are doing great work. But let's talk about these releases, right? Because, Trev, there's 60 releases every week. And I don't... It is too many.
Yep.
And I don't want to be the complaining sneaker guy, because I feel like we have a lot of that for just the sake of complaining. But it's every week there's 10, 12 releases, and people get upset openly that, man, all these suck. In my opinion, with so many, a vast majority of them are going to suck. Do you agree?
100%. You only have, one, prices have gone up, which that's inflation. You're feeling that everywhere. You're feeling that at the grocery store, the gas pump, in your electrical bills, your You're feeling it everywhere. But
Depends on who you ask here, but yes, I get you.
well, I work in the food industry, so I for food at least, it's a sliding scale that's only going up.
That was a shot on my part, so just keep moving.
Yeah, like so you're seeing prices go up, right? And I mean, I was
Mhm.
actually just listening. I just coming back from golf, but I was listening to our pod on my way back, and we were talking about this. You know, like you have to start picking and choosing what you grab. Like, you know,
100%.
we're talking about the Aqua 8s. Rich was saying it was 310 Canadian for them.
That's a lot.
That's
That's
a
a
lot.
lot.
And ours are usually a little bit more expensive than yours
Yep.
are, just based on the currency. But
Yep.
it's a lot. Like, and I'm sure, I don't know if you've picked up any Jordans this year or anything, but it's probably running you about 200 US to 250.
Yeah, the white cement Jordan 4s are just off camera over here. Those were 225.
Okay, so which is significantly more than you would normally be paying for those.
Probably. It has gone up. Prices definitely have. Now, I say that I'm in the fortunate place in my life where I can double up on that, which I don't
Yep.
do very often,
Yep.
and be okay. And it's not a have to have.
Yep.
Like if my life took a tumble, everything would change. But when you're in a position where you can make those decisions, it's getting harder and harder to justify the volume. That's what it comes
100%.
down to. But that goes counter to sort of what is expected of you in this culture. You're
Yep.
supposed to buy at volume. You're supposed to be mass consuming. And I feel like I kind of got away from that and had some people sort of back off, like being interested in what I had to say because I didn't live the culture the same way. But I mean, we all got to put food on the table.
But like, I mean, you know, like you will if you guys listen to our podcast, you will hear me talk. I am a big fan of on cloud running shoes. I got a pair maybe a year and a half ago or so, and I actually just wore a hole through the side of them. So that's, you know, something very rare, I think, as a sneakerhead, right? Because, you know, I don't know how many pairs you're sitting on, Matt, but you know, you'll probably wear and have those pairs not until they get a hole in them, until the air bubble bursts, the sole separates. Like you wouldn't be wearing a hole through a pair of shoes, right? With how
I
much
don't
you wear.
know. I've changed a lot. Like I
Okay.
really have. Like I don't know if you remember last year I got rid of all my boxes.
Hmm.
I they're gone, and when I get a new pair, they're gone. Like I just get rid of the boxes, and I really do want to wear and enjoy what I have, because what I don't want to have happen is exactly what you're talking about. A
Yep.
shoe that I love that I've had and the sole separates. So you know what? I wear the shit out of the stuff that I have.
Good.
My I had the Wave Runner 700s. I glued the outsole 3 times before I was willing to get rid of them
Wow.
because I loved them so much. And it's like, I'll do that. But you're right, it is counter. And OnCloud is counter to the culture. I mean, you
Yep.
get raked over the coals every time you bring it up. But dude, comfort, this is why runners, and you and I have a kinship in this whole thing, but like that's why they're big.
Yep.
Because people want comfort, and now they're putting what they consider fire aesthetics on it, and that's going to happen. The weird thing will be, Trev, is are these people going to save these Asics Kayanos forever? I'm curious about that because I feel like that's a shoe that you wear because it's comfortable, and people are going to find themselves wearing it more often.
Yep. I agree. Like, and I think the big thing is, and you know, again, we've talked about this with runners, right? There's not a ton that separate, and again, not all Asics, but like, you know, specifically Asics, as again, someone who sold them at Foot Locker for many years, I don't see anything different with the pairs that people are wearing that as to a GR pair. So I tend to think, yes, you are going to wear them more, and it is likely that you might wear a hole through them or just wear them out.
The runner phenomenon is interesting, and I think it goes back to what we already talked about with prices. And let's take just Nike and Jordan brand. I just cut a bunch of videos in here about this that'll be coming out soon, about the what I consider the dilution of the history, right? I feel like Nike and Jordan brand has an advantageous place because they can pull from maybe not as long of a history as some of these brands, but the history is deeper. So it's like peak versus longevity type stuff,
Yep.
where Michael Jordan's career is unlike anybody else's. The shoes that are tied to his moments are unlike any other company. And there are so many shoes that have come out, even not related to him, but that are elevated because of his story.
Yeah.
And now Nike is looking to turn the tables here, and they're just releasing all of them. And I don't necessarily disagree, but I feel like it's at the detriment of quality, and I feel like it's at the detriment of us appreciating the history. Now, I'm sure people listening are like, who cares, right? As long as they get their shoes, but I care.
Yep.
And I feel like the shattered backboard ones have a story behind them. How many
Yep.
people can actually name what it is? If you go to the release, if there's a physical release somewhere and you poll 100 people like it's Family Feud, how many people actually know what the story is? I don't like that. And I feel like these runners are popular because they don't have stories. And I don't know. I'm very conflicted on this, and I'm curious to chop it up with you even more and kind of dive into the runners thing, because I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
So to kind of go on your Jordan point first, we
Sure.
talked about this recently. I think we're getting further and further away from when Jordan actually played, and not even with some of the shoes he played in. You know, some of where the stories for the shoes were relevant for people. So, Great 5 just released recently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for people, you know, probably at the lowest or youngest, probably around my age, and then maybe a little bit upwards. They're like, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was such an amazing show. You think of the Great Fives,
Yes.
you think of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
100%.
Is someone in their 20s or teenage years thinking the same thing as we are about
No,
that?
but they have to bridge the gap,
Correct.
right? That's
Correct.
And what I fear is that the runner phenomenon may end up turning into what is not the ultimate death of the culture, but a downturn of the culture. Because if you don't bridge the gap between how we got here and where we're going,
Yep.
what's the reason to stay in it, right?
Yep.
We all stay in it because of the past.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying like live in the past, hang on to the past, but I don't see any bridging of that gap. And
Agreed.
when you say nobody cares, well, why are they not making them care or reframing it into something that is more relevant to these times
Sure.
right now? I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, I think we're releasing and there might be more that comes out on this. Undefeated fours are supposed to release
Yeah.
in the next week or so at time of recording. Like, we know what the story is behind that shoe, but does the general consumer know what that story is? And I kind of think that storytelling elevates shoes. So if we take it back to earlier this year with the Bread One release, right? Again, you and I know about the story of the Bread Ones, their band. We know the whole story on it. I feel like Jordan Brand did a really good job on telling that story and making it like
Yes.
a very exclusive pair. It was, you know, white glove service. It was like this big production. I feel like we don't get that, and there's not that type of storytelling with a lot of pairs that have a cool history and story, but you and I know it, but not everyone else does, and for that reason, it's harder for them to care about it.
But even to your point, also off camera are the Black Toes that came out earlier this year, which
Yep.
went on discount. But what I recently talked about was the Bread One. Now, I don't disagree with your points about the marketing and how they did it. I kind of disagreed first with how limited it was. Like, I kind of get it, but I also don't, because again, it's that's an OG colorway that has a massive imprint, has left a massive imprint on this culture. So let's make sure nobody can get it. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. But the Black Toes had tons of historical nods on it, like real stuff. And I didn't see Nike doing any storytelling about that, because that shoe released the same weekend as the Breads and nobody cared.
And I think we've been this, and I know what they're doing. They're saying, okay, we need to get market share back. We're going to flood the market. You're just going to see every Jordan that you could have ever wanted to see released this year. The problem with that is that you have situations like that. So the Black Toe is a great example of something with a ton of historical nods, a ton of cool little like small things on the shoe that
on it. Yes, not just like stories that go with it. On it, they included it.
yes. You're not like, we don't hear the story behind that, you know.
No.
I talked about the Great Fives. Didn't really see much on the Aquas. It was just like, hey, we're releasing this, go buy it.
I have such a problem with that, because it leans into the mass consumerism part of it. And that's not why we do any of this, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
We, the two of us, do this, the culture stuff, because it's the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and yes, it's the shoes at the end of the day, but like, would you care as much about your shoes if you didn't have In Kix and you didn't have the group and you didn't have the memories that you had with the people involved? So mass throwing up shoes, that's not doing the culture any favors. And where do we go in 26? If the idea is to just throw up Jordans that we all want, what happens in 26? Do we go back to where we were? So how does that work?
You have to start being selective at this point, and that's what the problem is that, like, okay, inflation, we get it, but you have to start being selective where it's like, I can't buy like every release that comes out because, 3 years ago, and I mean, life's changed a little bit for me, engaged, house, all that kind of stuff. So, yes, priorities have shifted for me, but 3 years ago, I don't really care for the shattered backboard ones, but hell, I would have been going out there and trying to get a pair, right? Like,
Peer pressure. Yeah.
100%. And I mean, like, the same probably would have been true pre-pandemic, because I know obviously pandemic shifted things a little bit, but like, I would be going out to try and get great fives, aqua eights, undefeated fours, shattered backboard ones. Like, I would be trying to go after these pairs, 2019, 2018, right? So you really have to be selective, and especially because every release is a hit. There's going to be ones that just don't do well and are going to sit.
But you also have the issue, and I think you and I talked about this offline, but you all talked about it on In Kix about, remember the black cement threes? The quality was very up and down across the board. And some people came at me and said my pair was fine, and others were like, mine was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unacceptable. Like, that's wholly unacceptable from a company that large, number one. But again, on a shoe that you're touting that I need, you're telling me that I need it.
Yeah.
And I would love to know for real, because I don't necessarily believe all of the reviews that I see of these shoes, but like your average sneakerhead, the people who are getting these shoes, what's their quality like?
Yep.
Because imagine this, Trev. Imagine in a time where inflation is real, people are paying more money because they love these shoes, and then they get it and it's meh. And then what, right?
Yep.
Like I'm just a little fearful that it's not a good end game here where, fine, nail the execution, but it seems like they're being selective on which ones they want to nail the execution on, and that's annoying.
I would personally rather they do, 4 is probably not realistic, but I would rather they do 6 or 7 good releases throughout the year than 14 or 15 that are all subpar.
And this, where we are now, because you haven't really pivoted outside of OnCloud, but that's more of a functional utility thing, like, is because I know you're on your feet a lot, you're in the car a lot, so you're moving around a lot, and that's really a function of, I just need to be comfortable, not want to be comfortable, need.
Yeah.
But you haven't really moved away from, and I really haven't either, the Jordans of the world and things like that. I mean, every so often I'll get something new because I think it's important to dabble into that. But to go to In Kix, like, is that providing you guys content, or is it becoming one of those where, man, this is getting so frustrating in the way that the culture is changing, the way that the mass consumerism is changing, and it's becoming more and more difficult for us to get on and just like love on this culture because it's not making it easy for us.
It doesn't, but I think for us we were doing it before it was popular, and we'll keep doing it after it's not popular, which you could argue is kind of now, right? Like we're still into sneakers no matter what it was. Like when I started at Foot Locker, I was big on, I just wanted to get how did I phrase it? I think it was, I want to get a pair of shoes that match every outfit that I had. That was like the goal. Like there was no overarching, like, I didn't know much about Jordans. Like, I know who Jordan was, but that was kind of where it ended, right? Learned that over time. And, but like, again, I still enjoy putting on a nice pair of shoes when we go out on the weekends or when, in the evenings, like that kind of thing. Right. So yeah, maybe it's not the popular thing, but like we would be doing this whether or not it was popular or not.
So you talked about origin stories, and you talked about the origin story of your group with In Kix. But for you personally, like, everybody seems to have a story with sneakers. And when I came on your pod, you guys asked me what you didn't think was a loaded question, but ended up being one, where it was, well, how did Fire Footwear get started? And I'm like, wow, that's tied to my life journey, which I'm sure was just boring for everybody listening. But like, everybody that's behind a microphone, behind a camera, or in front of a camera is a human being. And was sneakers something that is like typical for a lot of people where your parents couldn't afford it or wouldn't buy it for you and it became something you got when you were older? Or was it kind of something that fell into your orbit very early and you've always been into it?
It was definitely the classic. Parents weren't going to buy me the kicks I wanted, and I wasn't even really asking for expensive sneakers when I was a kid. It was just
Who
kind
knew?
of. I wanted Nikes. That was what I wanted, but it wasn't like I wanted X Nike. Like it wasn't like there was the penny ones sitting on the shelf and I wanted those, or like I talk about one of the few shoes I remember from a kid was the Nike Shock BB4s.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I remember those, like, because Vince Carter was wearing them with the Raptors, so I remember most of his Shock shoes, right? But it wasn't something where, like, I was going into a store and I was like, oh, Mom, I want those. And she's like, I'm not paying that, sort of thing, right? As I kind of got older, I started to want more name brand shoes. And I think I talked about this with one of our guests that came on. But my first step out of, like, Walmart shoes was Shaq shoes, which
I remember the Walmart stuff, man. I
oh,
mean, I feel like it's a rite of passage. Like my
yeah,
parents bought some stuff that I knew that they just had to, right? That and we weren't poor, but they were not going to spend exorbitant amounts of money on
yep,
something that as a kid you're just going to wear,
yep.
and they needed it for utility. And I'm always fascinated by the people who got bought J's at like 6, 7, 8, and I'm like, I'm very happy for you because that was not the life that I lived. And I think I was better off for it because I think now we can appreciate, like we talked about earlier,
Mhm.
being in a place to be able to do what we do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you appreciate all the pairs that you have accumulated over the years, right? Because there was a time where you didn't have a lot of pairs of sneakers, right? I I agree. Like it's a journey to get here. It's a journey to get.
Yeah, and the stories, the connections. I mean, I know sometimes, like I think I'm sitting on like 60 pairs, which is way less than all of you guys, but to your average person, it's insane.
Yep.
Like, and I do when I talk about it at work, because I don't know if this has happened for you, but for me, people kind of know that I'm a personality. Like, I put that in quotes because that's absurd to think about that, but like, and so if it comes up, I wear a different pair every day
Yep.
for the most part. Like I don't double up the same pair in the same week. So if you see me infrequently, you'll think that I'm wearing a new pair every day. And it comes up sometimes. And it's like, it's been a journey to get here. Like it's mental health. I always joke that, like, yes, I have a mental health disorder because even though I'm like, I'm good with what I have, man, those notifications come out and I'm like, ooh, like
Ooh.
I could talk myself into just about anything.
Yep.
And like the Safari Dunks recently, I was like, ooh. And I was like, no, I can't because I just bought a whole bunch of stuff. Like, being a member of Soul Savvy, I have the Drops app and
Hmm.
stuff comes up and you're like, ooh, and you're just bored. And boom,
Yep.
there it is at your house. And like, you have to be super careful.
Yep.
It is a journey though, but it's mental health and I'm good with it.
And it's similar for me too. Like everyone knows I'm the sneak. I remember a couple years back we had a national sales meeting, and there was one director in the company who his son was a sneakerhead. So he used to, like, sometimes he'd email me or IM me and ask me like questions. He's like, "Oh, we're thinking of picking up this pair and holding it." Like it was actually kind of cool. He and his son were holding pairs, and it was an activity they were doing together. Like they were going out buying a pair of Jordans and holding them to try and see
It's
what they
cool.
could recoup in value for it, right? So
That's
uh,
cool.
it's kind of a cool thing, right? So we're at this meeting, and he sees me and he says hi and whatever, and he goes, "How many pairs of shoes did you bring with you?" I was like, "Well, I think it was 4 days, 3 nights, or something like that." I was like, "Well, I brought 4 pairs of shoes. Like, I need to have one for every day of the week." It's like, "You brought 4 pairs of shoes?" I'm like, "Yeah, one on my feet, and I had three others with me as well." Like,
I used to think that way too. I mean, I try to have at least two. So it depends on what we're doing, but
mhm,
it's kind of those little quirks that we have. Like I can't just bring one.
yeah,
Like that's this like it's non-negotiable because I remember we went to Italy recently. My wife was like, "Are you just gonna bring one pair?" And I was like, "Are you out of your mind? Like, are you out of your mind?" Like, and I did. I brought two. I predominantly wore one, which
mhm,
were those Spiridons that I reviewed. Man, God, those are so comfortable. But I had to have two just in case. And I
yeah,
made sure to wear the other pair just once so that she couldn't be like, hey, you didn't wear that pair and you brought it. I'd be like, oh, no. I
yeah.
wore it.
I
Like
I
it got worn. and I wore it to the damn Vatican. So like, I don't want to hear it. Like I walked all into the Vatican with that shit on. I don't want to hear it.
Well, when you travel, like, I mean, we went to Florida last year, and ironically enough, Ons, as I said, very, very good. And surprisingly, the shoe that I saw most in Disney was Ons.
Oh, 100%.
Which
Yes, 100%.
surprised me because in my day-to-day life, I see Ons, but I didn't see them like that.
But that's the phenomenon, the runner phenomenon is sneakerheads have started to look like regular people now. Because I know for me, and I talked to Front Page Aaron about this recently. I think he was on your pod not that long ago. And I said it's a me problem when it comes to the runners. It's definitely a me problem. It's not a runner's problem because I see them as what my dad used to wear. And I have PTSD from before I got into the game the way that I am now, wearing running shoes as my regular shoes and hating it because those are running shoes. I run in those. And now I feel like I look like my dad wearing these shoes. And I can't go back to that. I just can't.
Yeah. And you know what's funny about the Ons for me? When I started at Foot Locker, the first shoe I got when I was working there was the Reebok Zig Tech.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those? So what I like about the Ons is it's the Reebok Zig Tech, but one, actually comfortable, and two, it's a more sleeker version of it.
Well, yeah, they've perfected things. It's kind of like retro uniforms or retro jerseys in sports, like back from the 90s. They looked absurd in the 90s. They were huge, they were bright, and then they come back in 2025, sleek down, looking like the aesthetic of today, and you're like, man, that's fire. Like, I'm convincing myself that the Buccaneers creamsicle is all that. And back in the day, it was like, that's ugly. You know what I mean?
Raptors jersey, the Dino with the pinstripes, was always considered to be one of the worst jerseys in the NBA. Now that is the best-selling Mitchell and Ness jersey. The Vince Carter one is. Oh
yeah, but the Raptors were what, 93? When did the Raptors come into 90, the NBA?
No, we just did our 30. It was our 30th season, so 95.
Okay, 95. So I mean, it was relatively around that time. How old were you then?
2.
You were 2.
Yes.
Wow. I was born in 1983, so I was 12. But so it took a while for that to like really be meaningful for you, because at 2 years old, obviously you don't care about sports.
Yeah.
And when you got into sport, like how young were you? Were you indoctrinated into it? Is it something that you gravitated toward? Like my dad watched sports, so like I watched it with him. But was that the same for you? Like, or is it something you picked up through friends?
I don't remember exactly how I picked it up, but it was not passed down from my dad. My dad's actually a musician.
Oh, wow. Great.
So he, not by trade, but like he, like in his spare, like that's what he enjoys. Yeah. But he's never played really any sports. He golfs, but like nothing like no baseball, no basketball, no hockey, nothing like that. So I don't know exactly how I picked up sports. I want to say it was probably my parents put me in something when I was a kid. I probably baseball in the summer. I did play baseball when I was a kid during the summers. And I only really ever remember playing basketball in the winters. So I'm assuming they put me in that. And then just, Raptors were on TV. Jays would have been on TV at the time as well. And then that's kind of where that moved from there. But sports were not something that anyone in my household watched.
That's so fascinating, because so many people, when sports is not in their household, they end up not liking sports as adults, or they don't care about it. I don't say don't like it, but they end up being interested in other things. Whereas like for me, my dad was glued to every Red Sox game in a way that I realize now is absurd, because he'd be obsessed with using the VCR to videotape a game out on the West Coast, and it's like game 89 of 162. And it's like, nobody tell me the score. I'm like, there's going to be 100 more games. Like, just chill out.
It's okay.
Yeah, well, yes.
It's not a playoff game,
Yes, and so that's what I was kind of indoctrinated to. And you have the Blue Jays shirt on, and I was telling you offline before we started here that like I had a Red Sox hat that I thought about wearing, and I used to be a fan of teams like that. And I know the Raptors mean a lot to you, and that winning that title in 2019 with Kawhi was just, it's probably a top tier moment for you. Absolutely. Haven't had kids yet, all that kind of stuff. So, but even so, that shit doesn't count, because if you're not saying, like, I was talking about this with a friend, if if anybody who says those two things, like, we're supposed to assume that that's the case. We're supposed to assume that the day you got married is great, the day your kids are born is great. Let's move on. I want to hear something else. I want to hear like a really great day for you. And for you, it has to be that moment. And there is a tie-in with sneakers, right? Because the come up of Toronto and Canada and then winning that title. And I feel like that had to have validated, dare I say, your sneaker like lifestyle in a way.
A little, like, because it was, like, that's, you see NBA players where, like, DeMar DeRozan at one point was, wearing a lot of Jordans before he got signed to, well, sorry, not signed, but Nike put him on the Kobe line.
Yeah.
He used to wear Jordans all the time. I remember in the 2012 to maybe like 2016 or so, there was a couple guys on the Raptors who would always be rotating through the newest Jays. DeMar DeRozan, Amir Johnson, Terrence Ross was on our team, and he was rotating through a couple different pairs of Jordans. So it was like a thing. Like, it was a thing where you're going to the games and you're seeing the newest retros or older retros on some of these guys. And, like I said, we were a laughing stock of the league for many years, right? So it validates that, like, we've got a Jordan store. We have the NBA champions. And by the way, we were the longest NBA champions in NBA history. So let's just not forget that, everyone. That's just because of COVID.
That's true.
But we were the longest NBA champions in history. And it probably will never be broken. So we can't have that taken away.
You had some help.
Yeah. Just a little.
Bubble championships don't count anyway. So
yeah,
basically,
exactly.
you were a title all the way to 21 when the Bucks won.
Exactly.
That's a good way. I actually didn't think about it. I was trying to calculate that in my head. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And then I forgot. Oh yeah, that's right. Because I don't know about you, but like life before the pandemic, I barely remember what that was like.
I feel like I lost 3 years of my life. Like, just, I don't know what happened in those 3 years, right?
So much changed for me, and this we'll get to. We'll kind of pivot to the In Kix. I know you said that that's not a fun story, but I think it is worthy of telling and kind of diving into it, because I want to talk about just sneaker content with you. And for me, if the pandemic never happened, this interview never happens, because my life stopped in a way that seems counterintuitive because I had a kid. But the fact that I was here in my house really allowed me to, I think, take up space for myself, if that makes sense, because you know how it is. You just rinse and repeat every day. And I think that being podcasters or whatever, it takes away that monotony. Like, we have something that kind of breaks the everyday grind of what we're doing. And I'm thankful for the pandemic in that way, but I don't remember what I did prior to it. But I love the person that I am now. And so I think that's a good segue into, like, how did In Kix start? I assume it's pandemic related, but there has to be, I mean, there has to be something, some moment along the way that kind of got you guys to be like, okay, this is something real now.
It's funny. So when I talked about earlier, we ran some shows in the city in like 15, 16. And someone we had a very large group of people, because I mentioned it was a BBM chat. So there was like 12 of us, I think, that were involved in running this show. But one of the guys had mentioned to us, he's like, hey, why don't we start a podcast? And this was in like 2015, because this was the first show. And at that time, like, no one was podcasting, right? Like, it was something that it was just very
under the radar. Yeah.
Very
under
under
the
radar.
niche.
Yeah, exactly. There was, if there was a sneaker podcast, there was like one or two of them.
Yeah, that was even predates Sneak Diss podcast. I think they were like 2016. So
yeah.
Podcasting was very niche. I mean, the radio was still a thing back then.
Yeah, 100%. So
not that it isn't now, but
how do I listen to the radio? I listen to their podcast version in the car. So
that's right.
So during the pandemic, I was like, because I've been trying to kind of push the guys like before the pandemic to like, let's think about this. We should do something like we have. The whole concept of our podcast is that you go to meet up with a friend and you're standing in a parking lot talking for an hour or an hour and a half. Like, that's the whole concept behind what we want to do. Because we feel like there weren't a lot of people that were doing that. Like, there's a lot of different sneaker podcasts. All of them have a place. All of them are good for different reasons. But we felt like there wasn't just people who were like just chopping it up on a week-to-week basis, right? So we're like, okay, and during the pandemic, it's like, okay, we're going to start this. Like, we all have kind of what you said. we all have free time. There's a lot of monotony in what we're doing now. Like, you know, you're working from home, so you wake up, you go sit at a desk for 8 hours, and then you sit in front of the TV basically for the rest of the 4 to 6 hours before you go to bed, and repeat. There's no vacations. There's no going to see friends. You can't go out for dinner. You can't go to sports games. Like, you couldn't do almost anything. So
no distractions at all.
Zero distractions. So we wanted to just kind of what it ended up being was it was nice for us to connect every week, because, you know, at that time everyone was on Zoom chats and, you know, like connecting with people because it was the only way they could do it, right? They couldn't go see them. So
God, so many flashbacks.
Good flashbacks, maybe not, but
I'm just, when you said Zoom calls, I was like, Jesus Christ, like I remember that. Like,
everyone's sending out Zoom links. Yep. So, and that was kind of the thing. It was like, it was a nice way for all of us to connect once a week. And, you know, like some of our earlier episodes were a little bit on the longer side. There's not all 5 of us anymore that are doing, or sorry, all 5 of us are there, but, you know, not all 5 of us are on all at the same time usually.
It's evolved.
Yeah, it's evolved a little bit. So, but it was a nice way for us to catch up and connect. Like, you know, you might hear a recording that was an hour and 30 minutes, hour 45, 2 hours, whatever it was. But there was usually a half hour to 45 minutes on the front of it, and sometimes time on the end of it, where we were just hanging out and chatting, right? It was a way for all of us to stay connected during COVID and keep talking. And, like, you know, if for anyone who listened to the episode, like, you know, like it's just a nice way to, like, for all of us to still connect and still just have that once a week connection with each other.
It's become part of your routine now.
Yep. 100%.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Not as a part of the monotony.
Yes.
It's become this break, I really need this. Like, I know for me personally that when my life gets out of balance and busy and I can't get up here, it hurts. And I mean that in the sense of, like, I can't go back to the way that it used to be. Like, I need that break.
Yep.
And everybody has something. But the pandemic was so interesting because it made podcasting super popular because everybody was at home.
Yeah.
And in the back of my mind, I knew that I wanted to do this because I had wanted to do it before, and my life didn't stop for me to be able to do it. And I also knew that there was going to come a time where life was going to go back to normal for a lot of people, and you were going to see this drop off of people who are in it. I can't tell you how many sneaker podcasts there are out there now that have like 10 episodes and you never heard from them again because everybody had the creative energy at the time, but they weren't invested in it. And one thing I love about you guys is you know what you want to be and what you don't want to be. And you don't have to struggle existentially with what should we do about the podcast. It's always going to be what it is. It's never going to change. It's all reliable in that way. And there is value in that, in not scaling it up because you're doing what's sustainable. And I really respect you all for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. And it's, like we still like what we do. And to talk about other podcasters that, you know, fell off or, you know, had the creative energy during COVID, you know, same thing with us. There's a bunch of podcasters that we had on that were, you know, they had great shows and, you know, they just weren't able to maintain it, which, you know, hey, valid. Like, you know,
shade.
Yeah.
Just no shade at all. This life is not easy.
No, like you're carving out an hour of time every week. And for context for everyone, up until maybe February of this year, like I would go through that podcast and edit a ton of stuff. Like I would, you know, if there was a pause that was too long, I would shorten it. If ums and ahs, I would take that out. Candidly, my laptop crapped out a little bit in February on me. So the software we use actually has an AI editing tool. So I started using that, and you know what? It's been amazing. It saves me so much time. But, you know,
work smarter, not harder is a real thing.
Yep.
And I think you're right. Like, I've gone over that a lot. I mean, I know I'm kind of in an interesting anomaly in this game because I really came out of nowhere. Like, when people find out that I do this, they're like, you know, like, I don't feel like I match the aesthetic or the vibe that many people in the sneaker content area do. But, and that's why I'm very proud of having any type of voice. Like, people found me and stayed with me, and that means a lot because it's like, wow, I actually did something, and I'm blown away every week that I can produce the content that I actually can because it's only me who's doing it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And it's like I feel you. It is a lot of work, and like I know you're doing more of the like the reels and stuff like that I'm not doing as much, but like it takes time to do that stuff. Like, you know, you didn't just sit down in front of a camera for 20 seconds and say something and then hit post on Instagram, right? Like,
it's like you've seen my newest video. It's amazing. Hasn't even come out yet, and it's like you've seen it. But you've probably noticed for me that I've changed a lot recently, and I've been posting some different things. And it's ironic because it hasn't been getting any play because it's not sneaker related. But that's kind of the how you got here, and it goes back even further to our earlier discussion about the history stuff. It's like, when you consume somebody's content, it doesn't matter what it is. There's work that goes into it.
Yep.
Not many people are just raw dogging it and just throwing out audio. There are, but nobody's listening to them.
Yep.
And it's like, it doesn't matter whether you guys do audio only or not. Audio is vastly easier for me than video, and that's just because there's so many moving parts to video. But there's still work. Like, even if you're using AI, you're still having to listen to make sure that it doesn't sound terrible. You're tweaking this, you're tweaking that. You got to make sure you know how to upload it. You don't just like get up and know how to do that.
Yep.
It's so much work. And I think that it's also important that people understand that. And I think it's also important when people come at you, and you guys probably don't get a lot of negativity, but it's like, bro, you should do this. Like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love to do that. But like, I can't do that. Get me a production team. Get me somebody else who can film me. Like all these people who have this amazing B-roll of like themselves out in sneakers. I'm like, that's because somebody else is filming it for them. Like I don't know how to do that. I can't get somebody to do it because nobody cares. But I love this journey though. Like I'll never complain about the journey. And I think what's great too is we've almost have this fraternity of content creators out there doing many different things, and we all kind of stick by each other. Like I don't see a lot of hate thrown at each other and beefs between each other, and I think that's very important because it means that we all can survive in this and all be what we are, and I think that that's important.
100%. Like, I mean, I listen to almost every sneaker podcast, like, you know, and
that's amazing. I don't know how you do that.
Let's keep in mind, I basically drive for a living, so I'm in the car almost all day. So, and even when I was working from home, there was a lot of time during my day where I could just, I had my headphones in and I was listening to music. So, not music, podcast, but you know, after a certain point, you know, when you're at home, and this was actually something that really started in the pandemic with podcasting, was I was at home and I just had my headphones in all day, and it was like I got really tired of music really quickly.
Yes.
So having a long list of podcasts that like, so, you know, I've got a bunch of podcasts that like, you know, all fall on different days. So it's like, okay, you know, Monday, 2 podcasts drop, Tuesday, 3 podcasts drop. And it's like, I have something new to listen to every day. And then you can pulse your music in here and there when you need to or want to. But, yeah, like you're right. It is a fraternity because we're all out here, we're all grinding, and, you know, I can see the work that you're doing, and I'm like, I know that didn't take him 20 seconds to produce, you know, and vice versa for other people who are producing content. Like, I know that video that was maybe 20 seconds to 60 seconds long took you 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 hours to produce.
Sometimes it does. Like, and I don't even put I actually do like to put the outtakes up there every once in a while because generally they are funny, especially when it's just me, like I'm talking to myself.
Yep.
And so when you mess up, like the other night I was cutting a reel and my dog came up and I was like, God damn it. Like, I was, you know what I mean? Because I was like right at the end and I hear and I'm like, God damn it. Like now I've got to do that over again. And it's like, I'm impressed with Mike from Sneaker History, you know, Front Page Aaron, you know, Haas has the studio that he rents out, which is like, talk about a great look, talk about, you know, like I said, working smarter.
Yep.
And that's why they're able to do it. But what's amazing to me is all of those guys, all those creators, I wish there were more women in the space. Like unfortunately there are some, but there's not as many who are as out there with their brands. And I would love to see it. But all these guys are doing something different. And that's what I think is so cool. Like, I don't want to do what Haas does. You guys don't want to do what Haas does. I don't want to do what you do. You don't want to do what I do.
Yep.
And there's a seat at the table for everybody.
Yeah.
And my appearance on your show has had me meet people who are probably going to be on this pod at some point to just kind of talk about themselves. And that would have never happened if you guys hadn't reached out. And I was surprised when you reached out. I'm like, me? Like, okay. You know, and you have this, it's funny because I don't know if you're like this, but like I have a level of cynicism a lot of times that I need to like ward off. And when you guys asked me to come on, I was like, are they trying to get me on something? Because I'm very open about, you know, how I've lived this culture. And it's like, that can't be what it is. You know what I mean? Like I was skeptical at first, but then it's like, no, they just want to talk to other people who are like them.
Yeah. And that's literally all it is. And again, like it's not that other people aren't doing it, but there's a lot of shows that will talk about the news, right? What I like personally about your show is that it's short. And
I make it easy for you. I was going to say, I make it easy for you. Like, oh, good. I can get his in 15 minutes. I can take a shit and go listen to him.
So what's actually funnier is I listen to podcasts on 1.8 speed. So your podcast,
a lot of people do that.
Your podcast is like maximum 10 minutes for me. Like
maybe that's like if I'm having a good day and I'm just like really feeling myself, which I kind of have been lately. But that's funny because I know a lot of people do listen on.
Yeah.
I'm curious though. 1.8 speed. Like, do you hear everything that I say at 1.8 speed?
Oh yeah. So you have to work your way up to it. I will say that. So like as an example, my fiance hates when I'm listening to podcasts and she's in the car because she's like, it sounds like mice talking. Like I can't like, how can you possibly understand what they're saying? And like, it's funny because I'll sit there and I'll be like, they talked about this, and this. You have to train yourself to listen to it fast. Cause I think I started I was doing it at 1, but then I worked up to 1.3 and then I worked my way up to 1.5. And then I was able to slowly start getting to that higher speed.
Wow. So you could listen to my entire catalog in a day.
Yeah, basically.
That's pretty cool. That was one thing about, I get asked more frequently than I would think about why is your stuff so short? Like they want more of it. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the heart to tell people like you asking me that you say you want more is the point. Like that's the point because there's a lot of long form content out there, especially in podcasts. And there's not many people doing 15 minutes.
Yep.
And it stands out. I mean, you guys talked about it with Haas. He's like an assassin. He just comes in here, does his thing and gets out. And that's the brand, right? That's the niche. And if I came out and talked for an hour, it would be no different than anybody. Actually be worse because it'd be just one person talking with no breaks. Like Sakje can do that, but he also saves up topics for an entire month, essentially.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to chew on. For me, I want to be out every week, but I also don't want to overstay my welcome because there's plenty of other people who are going to talk about things in a different way than I will. And I'm tickled that you listen to it at 1.8 speed. I'm going to have to try that one time on my own and see how it goes. And I'll be like, wow, I sound great. And I'll start trying to talk even faster to see if you can understand anything that I'm saying. But let me ask you, where do you want In Kix to go at some point? I mean, you're at nearly 250 episodes. It's been years now.
Yeah.
And do you, like, for you personally, are you okay with where it is? Or have you had sort of thoughts and aspirations of, could we do more?
I think you always have aspirations of that. Like, how could we do more? We would love to partner with some more brands. And not for the reasons you think. So for those
I hear you.
For those who've been listening to us for a while, at one point we were partnered with eBay Canada up here. Obviously, we kind of know what's happened with eBay sneakers over the last year and a half, 2 years or so, and that was the reason that partnership ended. It wasn't anything to do with us or them. It was just they basically cut their entire Canadian branch of eBay sneakers, so it didn't exist anymore. So that's basically what happened. But we like that because we like it for engagement on our podcast, like for giveaways and stuff. So at one point we were doing, during the pandemic, we had what was, we refer to it as grocery store flex. And I don't know. That might've been before you started listening, Matt, but
It might maybe, but I think I told you that I wear the most ridiculous heat to the grocery store and to the dentist.
So, but this was exactly the point. So when we started in 2021, the only place that you could go to wear sneakers was the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So we started it, and we had we did bracket style tournaments. So everyone submitted their pictures of their grocery store flex. So all you had to do was wear heat, and you had to be in a grocery store. So just take pictures in front of Pop or Chips or wherever in the grocery store. And then we did like a bracket style tournament where we matched people up, and then we had a bracket style tournament. We were giving away like eBay sneakers gift cards and stuff like that. Like that's what we want to partner with brands on, is not because we want to like receive things. And sure, we did have some things, like we had what we called treasure hunts. So eBay would give us a certain amount of money, and then we rotated between the 5 of us, and we would go treasure hunting on eBay for a used pair.
That's cool.
So stuff like that we could talk about, but we also want to do that kind of stuff so we can give things back to people.
Yes. And
the
it's
community.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's new.
Yeah.
That's where I've come to is, and like I said, I mean, people who have listened or even watched, and you've been following me for a while now, and you notice when something looks different and something is different for me, because I'm pretty consistent with, at least on the audio side, and nothing changes there. But like when it comes to the video stuff, it's like, I know I can do more. I know that I can add more value. And like you said, giving back isn't just physically giving back. It's also giving back to the culture, like emotionally to the culture, because that's how it survives. That's how we sit here and talk for an hour about shoes. It's the fact that the people exist. And so the brands have an opportunity to get in on the grassroots. I talked about this with Complex, how they're missing so many opportunities because they have the same people, the same voices on all of their content. There are a lot of people who could do some great work and spread the love in the community, but nobody's really doing that except for us indie people.
Yep. I'll give you a great example. One of the grocery store flexes we did, and like anyone can enter this, right? So you just because not everyone who listens to our podcast posts on Instagram or follows us or any of those things, right? Again, when I first started listening to you, it was literally because I was searching on Spotify footwear, sneakers, like that kind of stuff, and that's how I came across your podcast. But 2 of the people that went up against each other had a really, really close battle. They're still friends to this day. This was 3 or 4 years ago. They still talk. They still repost the stories of when they were going up against each other. Like that is the overarching theme of everything. We connected 2 people who didn't know each other, and they still talk to this day about sneakers. That's the point.
Community. You've built a community.
Yeah.
And that's what I have tried to do too. And like I said, I have a very small chat of dudes, and some of them have come from you. Like Will is one of the people that's in there.
Yep.
And I know he's been on your show a handful of times, and we are planning on recording with him.
Ironically enough, he is what is one of the guys that I just talked about.
Oh, wow. Okay.
DMX God, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And he's in our group chat, and he and I have struck up, somewhat of a friendship even on the side too. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Like, it's all about that connection. I love it when somebody reaches out and says that I touched them in a way that is not even related to sneakers. And most of the people who have found me outside of like some of the guest appearances I did an episode about turning 40. And so many people were like, man, I just turned 40 or turned 40 a couple years ago. They have young kids the way I did, and they felt seen and heard. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I appreciate that. And it has nothing to do with sneakers at all. It's like a camaraderie of, I'm in that place in my life, and we are basically like the same person. And that's cool to me.
Yeah.
It's fine if you have brand deals and, you can give out coupon codes and stuff. Sure, right? Like if you're making money off of it, no problem. But if you're not connecting with the actual people, I don't know. It would ring hollow for me personally. And you guys have found the sweet spot on that.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of it, right? Like, I mean, I think the other thing that we're proud of with this podcast, or me personally, is one of the girls locally in Toronto, her name is Monique. This is Mo on Instagram. I don't know if you
I think I listened to that episode when you guys had her on.
Okay, yeah. So she is actually a friend of my best friend's girlfriend. They went like they run in the same circles. I believe they went to high school together.
Okay.
So I remember when she started off kind of producing sneaker content. Um, her my best friend's girlfriend, she reposted something. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, she's into sneakers. I'm into sneakers. Like, what's she doing?
Yep.
Like, I'm interested to see. And actually through that, like, I connected through them, and like, we had her on our podcast. She's done a bunch of she's been on takeover episodes. She's been on women's day panels, and through that, when eBay was doing stuff up here, she was one of the people who was getting seated things and was doing things for eBay. And for me, it was like, that's the whole point of this. Like we're connecting, and I want you to be introduced to the people that I know who are doing things within sneakers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're doing a great job at that. I want to ask you one more question, and then we'll wrap this up a little bit. But what is the coolest thing you've done through In Kix We Trust?
Coolest thing we've done.
It can be person you've interviewed, whatever it is.
I think the coolest
for
thing.
You.
I think the coolest thing for me was that we've done things with SneakerCon.
Yes.
So we were on. I think we've been on stage at SneakerCon twice, I believe.
That's really cool.
Like, we got to do like the first year was kind of came together at the last minute, so it wasn't as polished as we might have wanted it to be. The second year we kind of got to do like a mock
panel.
Yeah, kind of like a mock version of our podcast.
Okay.
So instead of wares and pickups, we did what are we wearing today to SneakerCon, and how did we come to that decision? And then we kind of tried to do audience engagement and be like, hey, wow, what was the coolest pair of kicks you saw here today? Like, stuff like that. And it's hard, right? Because, not everyone's all by the stage all at once. So we had some giveaways and stuff like that. But that to me was like, that was really cool, because it was like, we are at SneakerCon, and we are on a panel. Like, SneakerCon is this global brand, and was always at least seen as the premier sneaker. I want to call it a traveling circus, but that's not the right word.
It kind of is now, but yes, I get what you mean.
Sneaker convention is the word I'm looking for, but it was the premier
traveling circus works too.
Yeah, it was the premier show that was traveling around for sneakers, right? And I know there's a few others in the US, but SneakerCon was really the only one that I ever really heard of outside or in the US. So that was really cool. And then maybe not obviously, but getting the chance to work with eBay, I thought was, when we confirmed that, was able to get that going, it was such an amazing, like, wow, this is crazy. Like, we're working with eBay sneakers, like us.
I think you've earned it, first of all. And I know that it's not still ongoing, but it's the validation of, we've put a lot of effort into this. Mm-hmm. We've put a lot of emotional sweat equity into this for the community, to tie all this back in, to tie it into Canada. And yes, not all 5 of you are from Canada, but the point is you identify with that area for a myriad of reasons. And what I think you have done successfully is, I think you have built a brand for yourself around the people and the geographic area that you represent. And I think that that's really difficult to do. Like, I'll never do that in the United States. And the United States is very large, but we don't need that. Mm-hmm. You guys provided something at a time when people needed it. And being on stage at SneakerCon or whatever, those are all pieces of information that validate what you've done, not in the podcast, but for the culture. And I think you need to pat yourself on the back for that. And anybody who's listening needs to go and support, because that's what we do. Support the people who support me and support the culture. And you guys are doing that. And I'm so glad that you've shared a little bit about yourself, Trev. I feel like there's so much meat on the bone here. Like, you've dropped a few nuggets in here that I feel like I'm excited about, because now I want to ask you more, but I'm not going to do that here. But I'm going to give you however much time you want, kind of like at the end of not pardon the interruption, around the horn, where you've won here, and you get your time to plug away on anything that you would like.
When it comes to with sneakers, it's I think it's a big thing where you gotta wear what you like, and you have to figure out what you like. If you're new into sneakers right now is the time for you to experiment with what you like and don't like. We talked about this earlier. We are inundated with releases. So if you want to figure out if you like a Jordan 1, go into your local shop. Foot Locker, Champs, JD Sports, Dick's Sporting Goods, whatever it is, Sport Check in Canada, whoever it is, whatever the boutique is, go in and buy a pair of Jordan 1s. They're probably on sale. See if you like them. If you do, then start going after the bigger stuff. I think that's always been, that was hard to do at one point, but when I started in sneakers, I was able to I bought everything and realized what I did and didn't like.
Good advice. Solid advice.
And like this, there's a big culture behind this, right? We're all here to support each other. We don't need to tear each other down. Help each other out. Like that's the big thing. We have a kind of similar to what you were talking about, Matt. We have a chat group up here. Just, I mentioned I was golfing earlier. The three guys I was playing with are all guys that I met through sneakers and that are in this group chat. Like we all support each other. The whole thing with that group chat is, if there's a raffle and I'm the only one who wants a pair of shoes, every single one of those guys is putting in for a 12 for me. And vice versa. If they want something and I'm not going for it, I'm throwing a raffle entry in for them. So support each other.
Will just benefited from that because guy in our chat got him the orange Kobe's because he struck out on retail.
Okay.
So, made him extremely happy. So he'll be happy to be talked about in this episode, and you are going to hear his voice on there. Also, before we get out of here, I want you to tell everybody where we can find In Kix We Trust, how to follow you, all that good stuff.
So you can find In Kix We Trust on Instagram, in KIX We Trust. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podbean, Amazon Music, and I think there's one or two others that I can't remember, but you're probably listening on one of those 2 or 3 platforms. We release every Monday. 95% of the Mondays we're out. So, every Monday there's a new episode. So make sure you go, I guess it's follow, subscribe, like us, whatever it is on the the platform that you're using.
Exactly.
And new episodes drop every Monday. And if you want to go back, we've had some great guests on. I know you mentioned Front Page Aaron's been on recently. We had Haas on.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was this year, but I could be wrong about that.
It was after me, I feel like, or it was right before me. It was adjacent to when I was on it, I feel like.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good guests on. So you can go back and there's a lot of great guests that we've had on there. And again, same thing that we're doing here. Just we want to chop it up and we just want to learn about where people's started from and how they got to where they are in sneakers.
Exactly. And like I said earlier, everybody support the people who support me. So go there, follow whatever is applicable for you. And even if they're not your cup of tea, stick around, give them a review, something, because it means a lot. We're putting in a lot of work here. Those guys are putting in a lot of work. Trev, you're putting in, I would say, the most work because you are doing all of the behind the scenes stuff that nobody really gives a shit about.
Yeah.
Because as long as they get their podcast every Monday or whatever, that's all they care about. But it is a sacrifice, and it's a sacrifice that we willingly make. And I realize that sounds hyperbolic, but it's true. You and I could spend a lot more time doing other things than editing a podcast or talking sneakers with our friends. But we decide to do this because it means something. So go ahead and support Trev and support In Kix We Trust because it's important to me that you do that. Trev, I want to thank you very much for taking out the time. I realize that it took far too long for you to get on here, and a lot of that has to do with my life post-January 20th, but it is what it is. We're coming up for air. Rising tides raise all boats, whatever type of euphemism you want to use for that. But I'm glad you got here, and I'm really happy with what we put together because I learned a little bit about you, and I hope everybody else did too. So appreciate you taking out the time, and obviously we'll be talking offline, but hopefully you'll be back.
Anytime, man. You let me know, and I'm happy to come back on.
All right, buddy. Take care. Well, there you have it, my interview with Trev. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed it in the moment, and listening back, I do think it's a great interview. Trev is one of the nicest people in the game, and so it means a lot to me if you support the In Kix We Trust podcast. Hope you enjoyed this interview. Hope this finds everybody well and safe, and I'll talk to you in the next video.